r/ask Reddit. Women of Reddit, what is the worst thing a female friend has done to a man? Did you speak up about it? I'm a woman. I've known this girl almost all of my life. We grew up down the street from each other. Both of our parents moved into the same subdivision back in the early 90s, and we played together as kids and went to school together, K-12. From about 7th/8th grade on, this girl almost always had a boyfriend. You know the type. She is not only almost never single, but she usually has a new guy lined up before she dumps the old one. She does this a couple of times in high school, but I didn't say anything then. Her worst instance of this happened in college. Our freshman year of college, she meets a guy at a Halloween party. He is about 5 years older than her and doesn't go to the college they met at. They hang out more and eventually he is her boyfriend. The guy's nice, very goofy, but a good guy. He seems to take good care of her. Around a year later, I see on Facebook that she has changed her relationship status to in a relationship with some guy who isn't her boyfriend. I text her and ask what happened to her actual boyfriend. She laughs and says, "Oh, it's nothing. I'm just doing it to mess with my friends. They think I like this guy and I'm just getting back at them. Kind of weird, but whatever." Then about a week or two later, I Skype with her on a weekend morning. It is normal enough at first. She is talking to me while seated in a chair, says she is in a friend's room and they are watching a movie. Then the friend walks in frame. It's a shirtless dude. The same dude from the Facebook relationship change. He sits on the chair and she is sitting on his lap. It is weird at this point. I don't really know how to feel about it, considering he is not her boyfriend and they are touching and tickling each other. And then he starts feeding her chocolate. And at this point it goes from weird to super weird. Not long after that, we end the call and I immediately text her actual boyfriend telling him I think something is going on with this guy. He totally brushes me off, saying that they are just friends and referencing the Facebook thing and how she is just messing with friends. I tell him everything I just saw and what she is doing. He is now properly concerned and confronts her via text, I believe. He let it slip that I told him, and I was worried my friend was gonna go off on me for ratting her out, but she didn't and never really brought it up. They ended up staying together and actually just got married this past summer. So I guess it worked out. I just couldn't let her do something like that when it was so unfair to her boyfriend. He was a good guy and didn't deserve that shit. Do you want to hear something fucked up? I'm going to tell you about Lucy. Lucy isn't her real name obviously, but she was an abusive, manipulative, controlling, anger issues, problematic cunt throughout high school and throughout college, and throughout every point of her life. This is the story of her marriage. She married a friend she had for 8 years. They have been through middle school, high school, college, etc. They were very close. It was obvious he was being abused though. His response always made me worry she isn't hitting as hard as before. They got married and everything was fine. There were no more bruises on the husband, and he was much happier. They got a lot of pets though. A lot. Every week on Facebook he would post a new cat or dog they would adopt. Most of these would run away. A few years into the marriage, Lucy announces a pregnancy. Everyone is instantly worried because of her aggressive Facebook posts such as "I'm the number one in my man's heart. No animal or another girl will change that." Lucy is also crazy jealous of everything. She refused to let her husband watch any film with an actress that she thought was more attractive than her. Basically any women and some men. My girlfriends and I made an agreement. The first sign of abuse we call CPS. This isn't up for debate, change, or anything else. First signs we call CPS. The rest of the year goes off without any problems. The usual stuff happens. New pets, they disappear. Lucy can't hold down a job, and husband is working crazy hours at his dream job, game designer. Baby comes and everything seems happy. Happy pictures on Facebook, some celebrations, and other pleasant things. After Lucy is back home, things take a turn for the worst. Apparently, Lucy and husband got into an argument. Husband went to work. Lucy posted the longest message on Facebook I've ever seen. It had to be continued multiple times. Everyone was concerned. Most people usually ignored her when she went on these tangents. The last message put up a lot of red flags though. The last message was, "He will be sorry for loving anyone more than me." We thought the husband was cheating, and she found out. We were concerned, called the police, and well, she killed her baby as a means of getting back at her husband. Apparently, she was going to blame the husband, but because we called the police they caught her in the act. Also, those pets that kept running away. Lucy would get angry and hit them, sometimes killing them in the process. Most of the remains were buried in their backyard. Husband confessed everything. Husband was shaken up completely and just a wreck for a few months. Lucy is going to jail, and he is freaking out. Some friends try to comfort him. A lot of people gave him the "I told you so" speech, which was fucked up emo given what he was going through, and his family, as well as Lucy's family, were trying to support him. He ended up committing suicide a few months later. Lucy and I weren't close, but I wouldn't call us complete strangers, but I do regret not calling her out for her actions and behavior. A lot of people did, and that just made her angry. According to her, in any situation, her actions are completely justified, no matter the circumstances, results, or who they hurt. It has been a few years since this happened. Lucy and I are no longer friends on FB, and I believe she will be in jail for quite a long time, hopefully life. I have a internet friend who manipulates guys. She's not malicious, just lonely and messed up brain-wise. The issue is she leaves a slow of heartbreak in her wake. I haven't known her long, so I don't know how many times it's happened. She has a boyfriend Irel who she doesn't talk about as such. I know this info through her online ex. She has a queue of guys ready to go, admittedly an assumption I'm making, based on the fact that every time she's done with one guy she already has another in the Discord server that is obsessed with her. I can't bring it up to these guys for a few reasons. 1. She is so careful about the situation you'd think she was a sociopath. Only gives the public internet friends, Discord server, enough information to make conjecture, so she can easily say we weren't together after she gets rid of the guy. Meanwhile, a friend of mine who is closer to her gets more detailed information. The dumped guy was talking about moving in with her, getting married etc. That proves otherwise too. The next guy doesn't fucking care. At one point my friend, the one who is closer to her, had enough and pretty much popped off in a public server about how a guy was being used, and the guy was literally like, nope, I'm not. They think they're the one to change her, or like she's leaving / cheating on the other guy with the next guy, cause the next guy is definitely the one and this can't be a pattern of behavior. And the selfish reason 3, she controls a lot of stuff, public images of people, past guys and also past friends who spoke up about her behavior, and video game related stuff. I'd get ostracized quick, unless I had really damning evidence / people even cared. At this point I try to drop hints whenever possible. Currently tagging the current soon to be past guy coincidentally when she's alone with the next guy. Not official, but it's obvious when she's brachiated in a Discord channel. Bringing up the current when the next is in the voice channel. But again, it's sad these dudes just don't fucking care, man. I don't even touch the subject of her Irel BF cause that's technically information I don't know, not supposed to know, and can't be substantiated. Long post, but this shit has been grating on me for weeks at this point. It probably doesn't seem like it, but it's a complex situation. I want to tell people, but I can't, because she has room to deny / people don't care. If she totally publicly shelves the current guy, he just got deployed, or some shit, so he can't play video games / be on voice 247 anymore, and brachiates, I'm gonna have to say something cause it'll be the last straw. I hope she doesn't know my Reddit account, haha. A little late to this thread, but I have something worth sharing. I met this girl in 5th grade and we became inseparable. She was my best friend all the way through high school. She was always so much fun and just a really good person. She was a little insecure about her weight, so she never actually dated in high school. Flash forward to our graduation and she's lost a lot of weight. She looks absolutely amazing. She's always had a beautiful face and long blonde hair. Anyway, she starts getting a lot of new attention, and she is loving it. I'm happy for her, but also a little worried, since she's kind of going after the bad boy type. We have a lot of fun that summer, then I move away for college. I try to keep in touch as much as I can, but she's busy with boys. A few months later I hear she's found the one, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised when I finally meet him, because he seems like a really polite guy, even though his outward appearance seems to still fit that bad boy type. A few months later and she's pregnant. Again, I'm happy for her. He wants to be a good dad and marry her. Baby is born, and he is the happiest thing in my life. I get to babysit a lot, and I'm pretty much his aunt. They ask me to be a bridesmaid at their wedding. It was a simple ceremony, but watching my best friend take her vows and seeing her start her own family was something we only dreamed about as kids, and now it was happening for her. Here's when the fairy tale kind of ends. I hear they are having a few problems, but she is keeping it vague, and I just summed it up to the stress of having a kid at 19 and only having her husband's income support their family. I moved back to the city we grew up in after 2 years of college, find a job, meet my boyfriend, and move into an apartment not too far from hers. We become inseparable again. Either I'm at her place or she and the baby are at mine. She starts telling me how boring her husband is now compared to when they first met. I tell her that's understandable, since he works really hard, but that excuse isn't enough for her. She tells me she cheated once before and felt alive again. He knew and forgave her. I didn't think that was in her character, but I summed it up to marrying the first guy that came along and being young. But that was when I started to realize maybe I didn't know this person as much as I thought. One day a few months later she causally mentions she had a threesome without her husband. This time my criticisms are not welcomed. She gets mad at me, but I still promise not to say anything. After that, we drift apart. Not physically, as I'm still over at their place quite a bit helping with the kid, but emotionally. The friendship feels forced, we aren't into the same things anymore. But I love their son, so I hang around. One day her husband gets home from work, and she hands him the toddler and just leaves. Didn't say anything to either of us. He tells me that this is what she does now, and that she's hanging out with a guy friend. He's not happy, but still gives her the benefit of the doubt. For weeks after, I don't go over there, but her husband asks to hang out with me and my boyfriend at my place a few nights a week. He is such an emotional wreck and confides in us. Every time I tell him that she's probably just friends with the guy, even though I know she's leaving every night to cheat. But I don't want to kick the guy when he's down. One day I get a call from him freaking out, wanting to know if I can watch the kid the next couple days because their place isn't good for him right now with all the fighting. I ask what happened. He tells me she calls him crying one night from dude's place saying random dude broke up with her. He had to come get her and comfort her while she cried. Couldn't believe what I was hearing. Over the next 2 years she's cheating on and off with yet someone else, and I still can't bring myself to tell husband. I can't imagine being the one who breaks up that little boy's parents. At one point she gives him an STD, but accuses him of bringing it into their marriage himself. He believes that she didn't cheat, while also knowing he didn't either, and sums it up to it not being an STD at all. I tell my boyfriend to convince him to go to the doctor anyway. He gets treated for certain STD, it clears up, but he still can't put these two things together. Fast forward to 2 summers ago, I'm watching their now 4-year-old kid during summer break while they both work, since I'm off all summer also. The environment is toxic to say the least. Every day husband gets a Starbucks before work, she ignores him. One day she throws it at him, shit's getting stupid. The kid is mimicking their behavior and starts regressing. Talks less, has more accidents, goes back to wearing diapers. This kid is so stressed out, and he barely sees them. I'm in a vicious cycle of watching the kid all day, trying to sleep on the couch at night, while they fight literally until 4 AM, waking up with the kid at 7, and doing it all over again. I hate it, but I can't bring myself to leave the kid in that environment. In my friend's defense, she did just learn her mom had breast cancer, and I knew that hurt her, and freaked her out quite a bit. One day she causally mentions she's going to someone's court hearing to support them. I don't even ask her, but wait to ask her husband later on. He says this guy has been in jail for a little while now waiting his trial, but before that she was going over to hang out with him every night. Of course I had heard this before. I ask what he did to get arrested, and husband tells me some fight with his ex. We immediately look up his criminal history, and not only do we find domestic violence, but we find out he's also a sex offender. When I tell my boyfriend about this new fling, he gives me the ultimatum of either you tell her husband or I will. I sit on it for the next few days. She comes back and says something about how the trial was pushed back and starts bitching about her new lover's ex and saying she wants to put her husband's truck up for bail. Obviously that's a no from him, and she storms out and gets picked up by some of sex offender's friends. She comes back drunk, wakes up her kid with all the noise and brags about how they went and loosened the lug nuts or whatever. I don't know the first thing about cars and don't remember what it was exactly off of his ex-girlfriend's car to teach her a lesson. This is the very first time in 5 years that her husband just goes off on her. He's yelling at her saying she could go to jail for murder if that woman was killed trying to drive her car in that condition. My friend is completely shocked that he's yelling at her and doesn't know what to say. She ends up saying she was just kidding and things calm down and I put the kid back to sleep and try to sleep myself. I'm woken up later that night by hearing loud screams and bangs. He takes off in their truck. She accuses him of pushing her down the stairs and shows me a little cut while tears are streaming down her face. She was lying. I always knew when she was lying. She wanted me to comfort her after she looked me in the eyes and told me something so horrible. I look at her and can't believe what she's turned into: lying, vandalizing, cheating, not paying attention to her son, etc. I half-heartedly comfort her. She tells me it will all be better soon when Jude gets released from jail. When she went to work later that day, her husband came back shortly after and I decided to tell him everything. It should have been obvious, but he needed someone to say it. I told him how she's been having sex with all these men. I tell him she gave him the STD. He even tells me about more guys she was hanging out with and says he never wanted to face the truth. I tell him my only concern was for their child. He tells me these big plans about how he's finally done and will fight for partial custody and that when he has the kid I'm welcome to see him all I want. I apologize and tell him I can't watch the kid for the remainder of the summer like I promised because I can't stay there a second longer. That I can't look my friend in the eyes anymore. That I can't even trust her not to get into a physical altercation with me after I told all her secrets. Little boy's grandma, the one with breast cancer, comes and picks him up and I go home. A few days go by and I hear nothing from either of them until one day I get a long text from her saying I got my facts wrong and bitching me out. A few weeks later I see on her Facebook that they are just wonderful again. Don't know how she convinced him I was lying, but I'm sure it was creative. Now it's a whole year and a half later, and her Facebook is full of vague quotes about significant others not putting an equal amounts of effort into the relationship, that he doesn't deserve her, blah blah, back to the same old shit excuses for sleeping with others behind his back. So I assume she's still cheating and stringing her husband along, but I really hope she's not. For their child's sake. I miss their little one so much still, and I really hope he gets a normal childhood. I lost my friend a long time ago, and I don't miss the psychotic bitch she turned into. A former friend of mine started dating a new guy and her philosophy was, and I quote, "When you start dating a new man you have to start training them as soon as possible. That way they know how to behave, and you won't have to fix it later." So we would be hanging out while he was out with his friends and she would randomly just start picking fights with him about anything she could think of. And as she was doing this she was completely calm and cold. It was just her way of training him to respond whenever she was potentially upset. And then she would brag about things she prohibited him from doing, such as he was only allowed to hang out with his childhood friend for 4 hours on a Saturday morning while he was in town. And he had to get her flowers by a certain time before a major event. Anyway, I felt so bad for the guy because he clearly liked her and was going along with it. They got engaged within 8 months of dating. She even went as far as to call his mother and ask that she mail her a family heirloom engagement ring. Well, fast forward a year later, he moved to another city for work and became distant. Then as she was planning her dream wedding he calls her up and asks her for the ring back because he found someone he actually wants to spend his life with. She was devastated. But secretly, I was proud of him and happy for him. Edit, since many of you are asking, yes, he did get the ring back. But first, she made him pay back her portion of the rent she paid while they were living together. She said her only mistake during that relationship was that she paid part of the expenses. And going forward she knew that the man should pay for everything and she should keep all her earnings for herself. and in turn he gets her as a prize. She felt this was the reason he took her for granted, because he did not have enough invested in her. Yes, she is still single 4 years later. Last I heard she got a dog as a means to appear more nurturing to men. I feel sorry for that dog. Guy here. Good ex-friend had been dating my still good friend from since middle school until after we graduated from high school. They hadn't slept together. She wanted to wait. They were planning on getting married after college, and she was keeping her V card until then. Her parents line up a European trip for her and 2 of her friends. 6 weeks traveling around. My friend, her boyfriend, isn't invited, girls only. For the first week, she calls and whatnot. After the second week, she calls less frequently, and by the 4th week he hadn't heard from her. Her parents had heard from her and assured him that she was okay, but didn't know why he wasn't calling him. She comes home with no friends and shortly afterwards loses her boyfriend. Turns out that she went on a 6-week fuckfest starting on day 2 of her arrival in Europe. According to her former gal pals, it was a different guy almost every night. Total disregard for her BF. Talked shit about him after a week or so. Her friends tried to make her come clean, but she said he didn't need to know and she wasn't going to tell him. They did. In the airport apparently. He left alone. She had to get a cab. My friend recovered fairly quickly and ended up marrying another girl from our high school days who had been crushing on him hard for years. They have 2 kids. I don't know what happened to my former friend girl. Rumor was that she picked up the gift that keeps on giving, herpes, from one of her European guys. That was 25 years ago. Who knows? Edit. A word. Female here. My ex was an all-around horrible person and I honestly am mad at myself for taking so long to see it. Aside from ruining my wedding, she ruined a ton of guys. The standard: treat them like crap, pretend to be interested, and then make them pay for everything. She's move on once she found something better. Around the time we all turned 20 she started dating our friend M. She claimed to love him and had a whirlwind romance. But after moving in together and raising about 1 billion animals, she would start fighting with him for no reason. Talk shit about him and put him down. Manipulate him to do whatever she wanted. During this time she began to talk to her old high school boyfriend on some furry website. The talking got serious and she straight up bragged to me about it and made it sound like whoever was new would treat her better. She cheated on her boyfriend for months until they finally broke up. Then she started doing the exact same thing to her new BF. He lived overseas in the UK. Made him visit a few times. Then he moved over here and they got engaged. Ruined my wedding in the process because she wasn't the center of attention. So I cut ties. Last I saw she was dating random assholes again. So I can only assume they got divorced, or maybe the wedding never happened. In my mind she cheated on her fiance too. She was a terrible person who manipulated and put down everyone around her. She had something terrible to say about anyone to anyone who would listen. And had an excuse for everything too, blaming her parents most of the time. Her mom was indeed crazy, but her dad was a sweetheart. Honestly, I don't see her ever changing. I feel for all the guys she used and abused. Made a throwaway because people will know my name and recognize the participants and I might be making actionable statements. Not a woman here, but I was friends with a girl who I'm pretty sure attempted to oops one of our mutual friends she had a crush on. It's well known he could hold his drink and liked to party pretty heavily. See, rack, despite being big on gym and general fitness, but at a group gathering that devolved into a small house party, she offered to grab us drinks, and not long after smashing down his 3rd beer, he was having a rough time of it. First and second were fine, but 20 minutes after the 3rd he was very intoxicated, despite not having had any prior substances. She offered to take him home as she'd arranged to be Dizo in case we went out, but since she's not very strong, and he was beginning to stumble, besides not having her first aid cert, we all decided the couch would be a better idea, and shortly later, a bedroom in the back of the house, when we decided we needed the couch for sitting on. Another friend later found her giving him a blowjob when they went to offer him water and check he was in the recovery position. Yeah, that bad, which we sort of expected and winked at her about. What wasn't expected, though, was finding a condom wrapped and tied in toilet paper in her handbag when I went to get another case out of her car, since she's picked us up. Bathrooms and bins on the way back to the lunch room where we were, but it still found its way into the bottom of her purse. Hate to say it cause it still feels gross, but I stuck it in my pocket and decided to feign drunkenness so I could keep track and make sure she didn't find it again before she went home. Ended up sleeping on the other side of our drunk friend's bed too, as a prank, so he'd wake up to my beautiful face, but worried that something worse might happen if she was got the opportunity to make it. I told him the following day after we stumbled into a Macca's on the walk home, and he was very confused about how the whole night played out, as he could remember some details but not all, and nothing past getting very drunk really quickly. I've never been close to him cause he's a bit abrasive and overbearing, but seeing him, a 100-kilogram brick shithouse, as scared as he was, after he realized what I was implying was just, I dunno, as uncomfortable as I've had a conversation with another guy be, cause I didn't know how to offer any help. I gave him the condom back, which he took in his stride and actually thanked me for, and told him to be real fucking careful around her, and so he steadily distanced himself from the group over the coming months. Wasn't withdrawn, thankfully, but he seemed more cautious, so I hope he's doing alright. Lot of dudes here. I'm also a dude. Not sure if it's relevant, and it's not the worst thing. A long way from being the worst thing. Feels pretty minor, to me at least. But I was in a pub a few years back, standing at a reasonably busy bar, waiting to get served, and a 20-something girl from a hen party just walked up next to me, reached around, and grabbed my junk. Like a full Holden squash. Then without saying anything, or making any eye contact, went off giggling back to a group of other hen party girls, whilst they all laughed. I kinda took it on the chin. My girlfriend was there, but had arrived earlier, and so was sat upstairs with friends whilst I was getting a drink. I didn't even mention it until a few months later, and I think she was more offended than I was. But how I felt about that happening, in that instant, was confusing. It was weird being the butt of a joke played by a group of girls who all seemed to condone it, and I didn't appreciate that. But it was also just really weird being treated in such a way that, had the roles been reversed, I'd probably be thrown out, reported to the police, and end up with a conviction of something. I honestly felt that, in that moment, if I'd have said anything, I'd have been ridiculed, and that made me feel weirdly vulnerable. Being a 6'5" gym monkey of a guy, I wasn't really in a position to feel threatened, but it was just really weird. I was really surprised that her female friends enjoyed it and seemed to applaud that sort of behavior. It was a bizarre experience. Like I said, not the worst thing imaginable, but I like to think there was someone in that group who was offended by it. I doubt it though. Seemed like a group of very like-minded individuals. Mom here. I took my oldest kiddo's GF in. Oldest kiddo is agenda, Budamab. Treated her like the daughter I never had. Let her move in for 4 months after her dad supposedly tossed her out. Bought her groceries, clothes for work, gave her rides home from work at all hours, etc. Basically, everything I'd do for my own kids. Even bit my tongue when kiddo proposed, knowing they were way too young. The laundriest of her sins, which came out after 3 years of the relationship. Multiple fake suicide attempts, verbal/psychological abuse, gaslighting, controlling threats to out kiddo to school, etc. Ruining all kiddo's friendships, cheating accusations for watching porn, while refusing to have sex with kiddo until they are married, attempting to install nanny software on kiddo's phone, repeated lies about her family background, race, nation of origin, history, languages spoken, etc. And then the coup de grace. Her boyfriend showed up at our house to warn my kiddo to back off his girl. Kiddo responded, "You mean my fiancé for the last 3 years?" Rather than come to blows, the two did some digging and figured out she had at least 3 guys plus my kid on the hook. I didn't have to do much, just sat back and watched my kiddo burn down her house of cards like a pro. With a few texts to the right people over about 15 minutes, she lost her apartment, her job, and all the guys she was playing. All her stuff still at my house, some clothes, stuffed animals etc. Went to Goodwill. Kiddo blocked her number and on all social media told her if she showed up at the house, cops would be involved. Had to move back in with her alcoholic father last I heard. Ran into her at a shopping center not long after with a guy she'd always told us was her brother. I have my doubts. My son, Kiddo's younger sibling, had to physically haul me away because I was 2 seconds from a serious battery charge. He told me later I had murder in my eyes. Kiddo is much better now. We've talked a lot because the gaslighting had Kiddo believing I'd never take their side or believe this much BS was going on in the relationship. Now in a much healthier relationship with a very nice girl met playing Overwatch. In high school, my best friend was pretty much obsessed with one of our band directors. He was pretty hot, so I understood how she could be attracted to him, but it was still weird. She would attempt to flirt with him, show off in front of him, dress in really revealing clothes, etc. She even walked up to him while he was talking to another student and kissed him on the cheek. He didn't react at all to any of her attempts to seduce him. My friend went between being pissed off and thinking that he was just playing hard to get. About 2 months after her infatuation with the band director started, he was gone for about a week and my friend didn't say anything about it, which was weird. Usually, if he wasn't in the band hall, she'd ask where he was, but not this time, even after a week. Now the band director also taught a music theory class which I was in, and we had this awful substitute all week, so I asked the head band director where our teacher was. The head director said that he couldn't talk about it right now and said he'd give the substitute some musicals for us to watch. He wasn't there the next week either. I finally asked my friend where her boyfriend was and she said, "Oh, he totally had sex with me and raped me," so I had to tell the principal. When she said this, she used quotations around the words, "had sex with me" and "raped me," so I knew she was lying. I immediately thought, "Oh hell no," and marched myself right down to the principal and said that I needed to speak with him immediately. I explained that my friend had a crush on our band director and had told me that he had sex with her and raped her in quotations, as well as all the other weird stuff she did to try to get his attention. I was in there forever trying to remember as many of the creepy ways my friend had interacted with the band director. The next day, the band director was back and my friend was not. Good riddance. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe the channel.